Welcome to the Maximize Business Value podcast brought to you by Mastery Partners, where our mission is to equip business owners like you to maximize your business value and achieve the exit of your dreams, whatever that means to you. With insights gained from over 100 business transactions, we share real-world strategies, lessons, and expert advice to help you build long-term, sustainable value in your business. Each episode is hosted by one of our Mastery certified partners. They're seasoned experts who've helped countless business owners navigate the complexities of growth, scaling, and building value. They bring first-hand experience, actionable insights, and a passion for helping you build a business that thrives. So let's dive in.
So hi, this is Dave Casey, and welcome to the Mastery Partners Maximize Business Value podcast. So this is a podcast for business owners that are serious about building long-term sustainable value in their business. Today, I'm excited to have with me Chris Goade, who's a principal at 360 Consulting. So Chris, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, I should say.
Yeah, hey, it's been a little while, so thanks for
Yep.
having me on. I really was excited to do this.
Believe it or not, we're up to this is like number 247 in this podcast series, so it's been going for a while. But
There you go. That's good.
yeah, so could you give us a little bit of background about you and the company and kind of where you got where you are?
Yeah, well, so spent lots of years in the corporate world, like many of us, and 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago, um, kind of launched the whole 360 consulting business, along with my business partner in 360 Consulting, Dean Ash, who you know.
Yeah.
And we both met each other through licensing with a company called Sales Acceleration, and we're still licensed with them today. And they kind of built the original model that we started our consulting practice on. And what do? We really help, companies, specifically SMBs, even some mid-market companies, build out sales infrastructure so that they've got sustainable sales engines to drive growth in their business. And as you know, Dave, a growing business is way more valuable than a stagnant business or
Yep.
declining business. So I think that's why we've always had an opportunity to work together with you guys and some, mutual clients, and it's been a real godsend. We've worked with probably over 140 companies in that 10-year period.
Wow.
Those are not all solely me. There are 8 of us in the firm now, and every industry you can imagine. So we kind of like to say we're agnostic, from an industry perspective, but that's because we bring a lot of experience in having worked with companies in lots of different industries, kind of running the gamut. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We kind of have 2 golden rules at 360 Consulting. We only work with people we know we can help,
Yeah.
and we only work with people we like. So those are 2 important things. And obviously, that second one is just a double down on the first.
Yeah, sure.
When you're working together, you're collaborating, you're really building something for the business. Those relationships are deep and rich and go on for a long time.
Yeah,
Even
that
if you're
parallels so
not
much what
actively
we
engaged.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah, at Mastery. Same way in that my background was in the IT world. So when I joined Mastery, I was sure that all my client base would come from IT services companies and people that I knew and company, an industry that I knew well. And it's been all over the gym. I mean, I've been, my first client was in the steel fabrication business, and then the equine genetics business, and then you name it. I mean, it's and that's kind of one of the things that makes it wonderful is to learn about all these different industries and how they tick and how things work and how the pieces fall together. So that's a lot of fun. So yeah, we've definitely enjoyed the partnership with 360 and obviously that many mutual clients. And I think when we uncover when dealing with clients, we do a lot of referrals back and forth. And I know that's part of what you'll talk about a little bit, but so mainly, I mean, revenue. I know that that the accountants think differently, and so do the HR people. But to me, revenue makes the world go round, right? It starts with a sale. And so what is your approach to keeping a company's revenue drivers, those people that are out there actually booking the business, accountable? How do you keep those folks accountable?
Well, I mean, I think it's a really great question, and the difference we always say the difference between success and failure in selling is the actual work, the actual doing it. So, it's really important, Dave, when we engage with a company that they clearly and that we help them clearly understand what their go-to-market strategy is. And what does that mean? It really means who are their ideal customers,
Yep.
and the ones that they really deliver value for, and what is that value proposition succinctly, right? Like you clearly understand that. So that once you kind of define that, now okay, how are we going to engage with those companies? Here's the clear value we deliver for them. Now you can start to build tactics around that. And how do you help your salespeople and your sales organization really hone in on those customers that you deliver value to, and that they clearly are able to uncover the opportunities to help those clients and those customers, and that they walk away from those that they don't,
That
because
last part is
we
so
only have
key.
we only have so much time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of you got to start at the top. You got to have that really good strategy and clearly defined kind of go to market before you're able to really put together the right tactical plan. But then it's critically important that you begin to put together the tactical plan, and that's more than just a revenue goal. So, we like to build systems that have indicators to the furthest point upstream possible. And that's different for every business that we work with. And quite frankly, sometimes it's different for companies in the same industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really about getting that clarity of task for your sales team so that your accountability is meaningful and impactful. And how you help those people win incrementally is really critically important. We can't always, I mean, we've had companies who have extremely long sales cycles, and we have worked with companies that have a combination of long and short and midterm. And we worked with companies that are very transactional. Either way, your sales team and your sales people and everyone that touches the customer, they have to have an opportunity to win incrementally, because the likelihood that you're going to snap your fingers and sell something most of the time doesn't happen.
Yeah, I've seen that so many. Of course, I started out selling mainframe computers, right? So if you sold a mainframe every 2 to 3 years, it was a big deal, right? But certainly you weren't idle for those 2 and 3 years. There's lots of incremental sales that go along with it. In our case, we sold peripherals and we sold software and other pieces and parts that went around that. But we could expect a big hit every 2 to 3 years in the mainframe world. And it's rare, I've other than that, I've not seen too many other engagements with clients where it's that long. I mean, a 6 month sales cycle sounds like a long time these days.
Yeah, it does. And I think too, you're when you start to think about those, whether it's short sales cycle, long sales cycle, whatever's most important for your business in the industry and the business that you're in, you need to have, we hear the KPI thing a lot, right? KPIs, and they are critically important, but it's more important to find the exact right ones. Measuring activity for the sake of activity is not a road to success. So, but you also need that, that ability to, not just for the business owner and for the stakeholders in the business, but you need to be able to say, I've got to, here are my goals, here are my pipeline, here are my leading indicators, whether it's meetings or demos or whatever those, identifying customers or bids if you're construction. You've got to find those not truly meaningful KPIs. And that kind of goes back to allowing your people to win incrementally. They know they're doing the right things. Results hey, you know what, if we had the magic elixir to just snap our fingers and produce results, and everything was just linear and just went, just grew perfectly like a spreadsheet, we we'd be done, right? We'd already
Yeah.
sold that magic elixir. So
Yeah.
it's really important to have those meaningful KPIs, and then that accountability, coaching, teaching, training is so much more impactful for your team. No matter what that team looks like, whoever's driving sales within your business.
Hmm. Cool. Yeah, and that's really part of it's interesting when I think back, my evolution, like I said, starting with mainframes, it was pretty clearly defined what we did, and we spent months training actually even to understand what the product was about, and then to get into how do you actually sell something that's $5 to $7 million a lick, it's a little different discussion. But part of it that we found is that process, and you've alluded to it several times. And in your opening statement, I mean, you used a word that I really like, which is sustainable. I mean, once you build the process and continue to refine that process, that gives you that sustainability that you can lose someone or promote someone and not worry about a lack of production because you've got, the engine is built and you kind of move people through the process that, you're okay, you've been an assistant in this area. Now you can become the lead and you already know the process, and you've lived it. So, and that's where I see, particularly in the range we are, the small, medium business size, the business owners, they either got there by having one way to do things and it worked, and boy, they built a business around it. But then they haven't looked at how do I transfer that to other people, and that will bring up something a little later that I'm going to ask you about. But certainly that process is so important to me.
Yeah, and I also think that if you're really interesting, talking about when you started in selling mainframes and the training that you went through,
Mhm.
every business needs to have a way to train people.
Yeah.
If sometimes that can happen very quickly, in a matter of weeks, and sometimes that has to happen over a longer period of time. Whatever that is critically important. That you have a process to be able to train people. Again, that accountability, that coaching,
Yep.
those things have got to be meaningful, impactful, measurable. And if not, it's guesswork, right? And
Yeah.
the one thing I don't like about in business is guessing. Sometimes we have to, right? Sometimes we have to use our instincts and our gut. But at the end of the day, we want to find ways that we're not guessing, that we know the things we're doing are building value and incrementally moving us along the path to success.
Yeah, I don't know if you coined this phrase, but I always give you credit for it. So, when you were working with us and helping us define all these processes, and we're talking about training, and and I've heard this pushback from more than one business owner. Well, the problem is that I've trained people in the past. I train them up and then they leave, you know. And I think you're the one that said, well, what if you don't train them up and they don't leave? And
Yeah,
you got another problem.
yeah.
So,
I sure as heck didn't make that one up. I don't think I've invented anything, but I've heard that said for years, and it always makes me chuckle every time I hear it because what could be worse, right?
yeah, exactly. What can be worse? Well, there's a couple of questions that I have around leadership, and this is one I've actually had a client ask me not too long ago, within his last 6 months, and it's so they're looking for a new sales leader for their organization, and they asked this question. They said, "We found a guy that we think is great, and but he's never really carried a bag. He's been a management guy. He's a great manager and he's great with people and he has all those skills, but he's not been a frontline sales guy.
Mhm.
Can he effectively lead? And I don't know if you've ever run across that, but
I certainly have. Well, the short answer to that question is yes, he can effectively lead. Um, and you've heard me say this, and you've heard it from others, and we've all heard this before. one of the biggest mistakes that business owners make, business leaders make, and I certainly saw this in my corporate career as well
Yep.
back in the day, and that is to take your very best salesperson and then make them the sales leader.
Yep.
And so great salespeople are not necessarily great leaders, or coaches or mentors. And great leaders are not necessarily the best salespeople. Now, I think that anyone who's leading a sales team, even if they haven't carried a bag before, to use your terminology, they're probably going to learn how to do that in the process.
Yeah.
So it's important that they're able to effectively be able to do that, even though you're clearly not going to ask them to do that.
Yeah, and I think they have to have a respect for the aspect of sales. That's the other thing.
Yeah, because I've seen, this is not uncommon. And again, I think especially in larger organizations and more enterprise organizations, but not solely there, that people get put in leadership positions and they come in with a very, kind of hard line stance on what's going to happen and what's going to be done. And, you've got to be able, leaders aren't anointed, Dave. Leaders are people that others will follow and want to follow. And so, I think it's a very delicate situation to be a leader and to be effective as a leader. And so the short answer is sure, someone can be put into that sales leader role, not having carried a bag before, and be successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to have to be even more intentional as they go through their learning and coaching and earning respect and building the right way to do things and the right processes and the right accountability and the right KPIs. And so, but absolutely, there's no question, and we get the same question when we've worked with companies. This doesn't happen very often anymore because of the many opportunities that we've had. But, I've had early days in the consulting career, I've had people say, well, hey, you don't have this industry experience.
Yeah.
How are you going to be able to help us, do this? Well, you learn, and there are certain ways to lead people. There are certain ways to build great sales systems, and there are certain ways to go, build value for your customers. And we're able to define those things. And through that process, you learn about the business and you learn about those things.
And you can tailor, some of the processes and some of the methodologies really go across industry. You do have to incorporate obviously something that's unique to a particular industry. It might be regulatory. It might be, there's a lot of situations where you do need to know how they operate and how they make money. But yeah, so much of the base stuff, I've always seen that good people are good people, good processes are good processes are going to work. So
yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I think in a leadership role in business, in a leadership role in any organization, in a leadership role in your family, you have to be able to earn respect.
Yeah,
you're not anointed, whether we appreciate that or not. That's the simple fact of the matter.
Sure.
So, and I also think too, businesses that have a really good sales system in place, can put a leader in that spot who maybe is not industry wise, or maybe they never carried a bag. But if that company has a really good process, a really good sales system in place, has good people, knows the roles that need to be on their team, understands who their ideal customers are, clearly knows how to articulate their value proposition, really has a process for top of funnel, sales cycle, and account management. If you have that system built, it's much easier to plug someone into that leadership spot than it is when you do not have that in place.
Well, and it's a lot easier to bring aboard an individual contributor and make them more successful quickly too.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And that's usually the selling proposition we've talked to people about.
Yeah.
So one trap that I've seen, I've been guilty of early on when we formed our company, not Mastery, but the company that I had years ago, is a principal that's in the business that is carrying the load of business development and booking sales and reluctant to let go of that. And I think you've probably run into that as well.
Um, all the time and currently.
And
So,
currently, okay.
so
I'm not going to name names now.
no names. No, we'll hold back names to protect the innocent. But
Yeah.
it's really, look, entrepreneurs get in their businesses because of passion or specific knowledge or a combination of both, and grit and determination, and just boots on the ground and just hard work and sweat equity and all that
Yep.
stuff, right? And so that's awesome. But to get to a point, you get to a point where you're getting diminishing returns. You
Correct.
kind of hit the ceiling.
Yep.
And it's really interesting, Dave. We've seen so many of these situations where that business owner really um, has a hard time letting go of the reins. It kind of helps. It's kind of an identity thing, right? This is they identify with their company, with their business, and being the rainmaker for the business.
Yep.
Bottom line, though, in every business that we work with, we try our very best to help that business owner get completely out of the sales seat.
Yeah.
They can't own the key customer relationships solely. That doesn't mean that they can't still be involved. They should be,
Yep.
but they can't be the rainmaker for the business. And so, if they're willing to be humble enough to appreciate that and be hungry enough to be able to want to actually grow their business,
Yep.
then they can let go of those reins and put the people in place, build the training and the process and the playbooks and the KPIs and all that system where they can have great success and focus on things that a business owner or a business leader needs to focus on. And it's often not that day-to-day grind of being a salesperson.
Sure. And those are hard conversations, but I think they're necessary in a lot of cases. And I remember going through this myself. I mean, two of the things that bugged me or were hindrances of me giving this up, I guess. One of them was the time to take and close the deal. It was like I felt like I could go in and close a deal quicker with a company with a prospective client than the sales guy or the sales team that I had. And I'm just looking at it. We want revenue quicker. I want to close the deal quicker. I think a lot of that in retrospect was just arrogance on my part. I don't think we maybe really closed them any faster than they would have closed them, but I sure thought we did, right? And the second thing was just, and I think it was an ego deal. It was really just something that you guys line them up, and I'll come in and close them for you, and that kind of deal. And it's, I had a great friend for many, many years. One of my best friends worked in the car business, and he said, car dealers are not all alike. Car dealers are way different if you go dealer to dealer. And there are certain dealers that are called liner closers that you hire kids and you send them out on the lot and they track down anybody that steps foot on the lot and gets talking to them and talk to them about cars. And these kids are all about cars. They know every specification. They know everything about cars. And then their idea is to get the client or prospective client all excited. And then you bring them in and we'll close the deal. So it's kind of a liner closer thing. And he says other dealerships don't work that way at all, but some work that way, and I thought maybe I was guilty of that. I mean, I was guilty of hiring people that would go out and find, prospects, and then I would go in and be the hero and then partially take the credit, say, well, you did a great job lining them up. Good thing I was here to close them, right? Terrible, terrible way long term to build value in your business.
Well, there's a thing about being a great producer or individual contributor, and that is, when you really are able to help a customer and they're happy and the company's happy. There's the greatest feeling in the world putting those
Yeah.
two together, right? And so there's a lot of satisfaction and gratification that comes from that. And so the business owner has to figure out a different way to fill that kind of gap.
Right.
And a lot of that is what you're describing, and I also think that, I can remember when I was a young sales manager back in the day, and for whatever reason, I gravitated to coaching and teaching others how to do it. It wasn't, I felt like I had accomplished enough as an individual contributor that I didn't need to prove that anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a difficult thing to get away from, but it's a mindset thing.
It is.
It's getting yourself in the right place to understand what's really important. And if you look at the big picture of a business, then you can step back out of that and you can really make sure, hey, look, you got to have the right people. You've got to have the right compensation for those people. You have to have the right way to onboard, train them, the right metrics and accountability. All those things have to be in place. But if you do that, you can be very confident as a business owner that you could step out of that sales seat and let others do it and multiply your knowledge. There's power in that.
So. If you're busy out there closing sales, there's other aspects of your business you're not paying attention to first. And then, if you can find that force multiplier, that's a huge aspect of that.
Yeah, I grew up in the restaurant business and learned how to cook at a very early age. And my dad was a great teacher. And the way he taught me was he would just let me prepare things on my own.
Yeah.
And he would tell me how to do it or take me through it. And then he would just let me do it. And if I messed up, well, we would have a conversation about that, or it'd be a learning experience.
Or you might not enjoy dinner that night.
But I learned how to be a really cook really fast because of the way he kind of fed me the rope. He let me make those mistakes. And so, in business, you kind of, maybe sometimes you have to be careful about that. You don't want to lose a big deal. You don't want to lose a big client. You can't, it's all about preparation. It's all about the right people. It's all about building out that ability to transfer that knowledge is just so important in a business.
Thank you for tuning in to the Maximize Business Value podcast. This episode is the first of a 2-part release. Part 2 will be posted next week.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Maximize Business Value podcast. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas on how you can continue driving value in your business. But remember, it's not just about listening. It's about taking massive action. Visit our website, masterypartners.com, for more resources. Grab a copy of any of the books in the Maximize Business Value series on Amazon or via the links below. And don't hesitate to reach out if you want to know how to apply these concepts to your business. So until next time, I'm Tom Bronson, reminding you to relentlessly execute while you maximize business value.